Hello everyone, I'm Marilee Freeman, the Sabes ELA PD Center Director and STAR State Coordinator. I'd like to welcome you all to the overview of evidence-based reading instruction. I will be the facilitator for this three-part overview. We decided to divide this into three separate sections for your viewing pleasure and to make it easier for you to stop and to be able to pick up where you left off easily. You are seeing a schema of our sequence of PD trainings for EBRI. You are now beginning your first steps on your evidence-based reading instruction journey. This first step is an overview to help you understand and support you along your EBRI way. This brief online training will help you understand and become familiar with what EBRI is and why it is important to you and especially to your learners. Again, this is your first step on the journey. Once you have completed this brief overview, you are able to move to your next training, which is diagnostic assessment. And these first two trainings are required before you are able to move on to the specific trainings for the essential components of reading at the various levels of your students as outlined here. As you can see, they're divided into three separate GLE levels. One is the 0 to 3, or 1 to 3 as we have it here, and then the GLE 4 through 8, and then the GLE 9 to 12. So for the first one, the emerging readers, the focus for your components of reading will be alphabetics, fluency, and a little bit of vocabulary. Then for the 9 to 12 level, your focus for instruction will be making sure that your students have fluency ability, but mainly your focus will be on vocabulary and comprehension. And for the intermediate level readers, that is what the STAR training is all about. So now, what is evidence-based reading instruction? EBRI is the combination of findings from two different types of research studies. One of them is the scientific or research method, which is a research that is conducted with more, of course, as always, with more than one research study, where the data is collected according to the experimental methods, analyzed with statistics, and the findings are scrutinized by journal reviews from the same or similar fields. There are not many scientific reading research, sadly, in the field of adult literacy. The next is the consensus among experts or professional wisdom. And again, this is conducted using more than one study. And then you consider the findings from the K through 12 language, the research that is done, adult, adolescent reading, and other resources, and reach consensus on which recommended practices are most effective for improving adult reading achievement. The consensus of what works, and it fills in the gaps of the limited scientific reading research in the field of adult literacy. And from this research, we have concluded, or the researchers have concluded, these promising practices for evidence-based reading instruction. The first one is conducting diagnostic reading assessments, and you'll learn all about how to do those in the next sequence of EBRI trainings. Use of assessment results to shape and inform classroom instruction. Using direct and explicit instruction, and I will explain direct and explicit instruction a little bit later during this webinar. In learner engagement, as we all know from being adult educators or any educator, even for the elementary level, the K through 12, you need to engage your learners in whatever you're doing. And then the relevance of instruction, what the students need to know, why it's important to them, and what they should expect to gain from learning this. And of course then continuously monitoring student progress so that you'll be able to give them increased level of difficulty in reading so as they can move on to complete their goals that they have as learners. Now we're moving on to the 4 essential components of reading. As you can see, these are little circles here, and they have alphabetics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. Those are the 4 essential components of reading. And you can see by these circles, kind of like a Venn diagram, that they do all kind of connect and intersect in different areas. And I will explain this a little bit later during this webinar. Now we're talking about alphabetics, one of the components of reading. And this is the process readers use to identify words. And it includes phonemic awareness, phonics, and decoding. And readers must rely on this alphabetic knowledge and decoding skills to read unfamiliar and new words. We divide alphabetics into 2 different skill sets. One is the basic skill set, which is phonemic awareness, which is the smallest unit of sound. That's what a phoneme is, and it's the ability that can, for students to be able to differentiate the meaning, the ability to hear and identify and manipulate individual sounds. Sight word recognition, and then phonics and word analysis. These are the basic and lower level reading skills for alphabetics that a student may have a need for. And then you move on to the higher level skills, which are the ability to use syllables to pronounce multisyllabic words, and then affixes, prefix and suffixes, and be able to understand that how when these are added to words, it can change the meaning. Now we have fluency, and you can see in the little circles on the lower right hand side that it's the ability to read with efficiency and ease. That's accuracy and speed. And then prosody is the ability to read with expression, which is an important part of fluency because it affects the comprehension. So here you see the first is accuracy, automatic text processing, and prosody. Now we're moving on to vocabulary. Vocabulary is the number of words whose meaning a person knows and is able to understand. The second quality of vocabulary is the depth and breadth of one's understanding of words. So an example of this is that our words, as we know, have multiple meanings. So if you were teaching the word resort, as in the last resort, someone who's turned to for relief, or whether it's a vacation resort. So when you're teaching the different meanings of words to your student, it is very important that you only teach one meaning of a word at a time so as not to confuse the students. Once they have mastered the meaning of one particular word, then you can move on to other meanings of vocabulary words at a later time. Now we're moving on to reading comprehension. And reading comprehension is the process and product of being able to understand a text and requires a high level of metacognition engagement with the text. And that is being able to connect words to understand an author's ideas. In other words, trying to understand what the author is saying. Seeing how those ideas fit with what the reader already knows. In other words, being able to connect it to prior knowledge and background knowledge that the student brings to the particular reading. being able to recognize that you don't understand what you have just read. As good readers that we all are, and we have good comprehension skills, we know and are able to recognize when we don't understand what we're reading. So we can stop and reread because we know we don't understand that. But our students do not know that they don't understand it, so we have to be able to give them some strategies so that they know what they need to do and to be able to acknowledge they don't understand what they're reading. So here's a cute cartoon that I like that illustrates something about comprehension. So now we have concluded the first section of the overview of EBRI, and we hope that you can identify and understand the 4 components of reading. And there they are again in the lower right-hand corner: alphabetics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. So those are the 4 essential components of reading. And now you're able to move on to section 2 of the overview. You may continue if you like, or you can stop and pick it up at another time.